hike into it. So where did the MacArthur family come from?
I'd say Mook tells me they're Scottish.
Yeah.
But when and how long here, you'd have to ask one of them.
But they're another family that's been here for a long time.
They came a little later. The old story is that it was one of their relatives. They're related to the Albaugh family. John and Kenneth MacArthur's mother's maiden name was Albaugh. Albert was a sister, and had so on. And it was a big family spread out. Lots of Albaughs around here. But anyway,
so the Albaughs are
but the MacArthur family came across. They were headed for Wairika or Oregon or something via the trail, and Mrs. MacArthur got sick. So they spent a winter in Fall River Mills. They opened a store. Then they decided to heck with it. There's too much competition. Fall City at that point. I don't know when they changed the name to Fall River Mills, but they did. They moved from Fall City up and somehow acquired property where MacArthur is now. And they had two rules: no houses of ill repute and no saloons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's unique in this area.
Yeah, we heard that from one of the Albaughs at one of the big cattlemen's meeting one time. He tells a story about that. And then no houses of ill repute and no saloons. Then the guy who's telling the story, whose name is Albaugh, he's long dead. He was Albert Albaugh's older brother, professor at UC Davis. Then he said, of course, they didn't foresee the birth of their grandchildren, John and Kenneth MacArthur. Well, of course, that brought the house down with a roar of laughter, because those guys go to the Buckhorn and I don't know about houses of ill repute, but they might have in their younger day. They, it was just a funny story. A piece of property a lot of people didn't trust. PG&E is a big company.
Right.
And the MacArthurs didn't trust them well. My granddad didn't trust them. If you go across from Fall River Mills, across the Pitt River Bridge, PG&E just tore down that old barn on the lower side of the road, right across from the falls. My granddad owned that property. Right across from it, below below the old feed mill, you can still see the ruins of a little electric power plant that they had there, and part of a dam going across the falls. They dammed up the water, ran it, and it flew around there and down through. Well, after it come out the bottom, after it generated power, their wires went across the river to property my granddad owned, and from there upstream a little ways, recrossed the river to service the town and such. And when PG&E, it was still in operation, PG&E come out and don't stand in the way of progress, we desperately need that property, blah, 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 blah. So he sold it to them. Well, of course, they never did a damn thing to it, with it, anything, period. That old barn was, anyway, that was, after that, my granddad, who had taken over the business from my great-granddad, was kind of like, you got to me once, you ain't going to get to me again.
Right.
Because if PG&E had their way, they could dried up the river right through town. Because that's all, they have to keep that river at that level. It's not allowed to, in flood years, they can't stop it from going up.
Right.
But if they'd had their way, they'd have drained it and run every drop to the powerhouse, and there'd have been nothing but a muddy slough.
So, and your grandfather was involved in that, setting that rule that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they wanted to, do this, that, But you see, you go down there, and just as you're leaving town, past the Art Center, and start down the cut to the Pitt River Bridge, you cross that little canal, and you'll see it. And hung on the Pitt River Bridge is a pipeline that goes across the river. That's Knoch's Knoch's water that's going through there, and there's a little dam facing, which they now let enough water to go over the top of it out. But they had to keep that river at the same level, or my granddad would have been after him like big time.
What years did your grandfather live?
He was born in 1882, and he died in the early 18...
You know where he was born? Carbon.
He was born at Carbon, yeah. Carbon was the place that they called the crossing of Hat Creek.
Oh, okay.
On the
All
old
right,
Winters
yeah.
Road, because it's pre-automobile days and
Right.
pre-299 and so on. But he was born right there at a place called Carbon. That was the end of the Winters Road, basically, for all practical purposes.
And do you know what year it was your grandfather died?
63 or 4, early 60s.
Early
You'd have to go
60s.
look at his grave right there at Fall River
Okay.
Cemetery. If you go in the main entrance of the cemetery, under the arch, and start about halfway down immediately on your right. I mean, right, there's a little thing with trees growing in it. You'll see Knoch. That's kind of, all of my relatives are buried there, well, except my mom and dad. But you'll see it, and that's where my great-grandparents and my grandparents and Merkin are buried, and some aunts and uncles and such. We're all buried right in that area. I don't know. I can't remember what year. I was a pallbearer
that's okay.
at my grandfather's funeral.
Yeah.
He had 6 grandsons. We were his pallbearers.
How many sons did your grandfather have?
2. One drowned. His grave is right there next to him, right in that area. He drowned as a little boy, 3 or 4 years old. He fell into some kind of a watering trough or something, and couldn't get out. He drowned. And then I had, my dad had 3 sisters. So there was 5 in the family altogether. But one died as a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. I can't remember. I'd have to look at the stones to tell you.
So at some point then your father took over running the Knoch family business.
He and my dad. The company became D.F. Knox and Son. When my grandfather died, they still had inheritance tax. It took my dad, had to borrow, $500,000 or something like that just to pay the inheritance tax. Well, they've done away with the death tax in the state of California since then. But to avoid doing that again, glad we own the ranch again. We set up a corporation, and Dad could give us, the 4 of us, so many shares of stock tax-free. And so we had it set up such that we carried $1 million. One thing that's not taxable in inheritance tax is insurance, life insurance proceeds from life insurance. So we take out $1 million policy on my dad. We pay that, and he gives us shares of stock till the day. And you don't know. If he dies tomorrow, we got $1 million to pay it off, pay off the inheritance. We're not going to go through that again. What he had to go through when my granddad died. So he, little at a time, the day my dad was still up and running, he didn't own anything. We owned it all. And so there was we don't need that $1 million policy on him anymore and stuff like that. And he's getting to be an old man. He died in the early 90s. You mean 90 years old when he died?
I'm sorry.
My dad? Late 80s, early 90s. I can't remember.
Yeah, but
what year?
So he lived up into the 90s.
Yeah, outlived my mother by 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
And then you were all stockholders in the D.F. and Sons Corporation.
The 4 brothers.
The 4 brothers.
I mean, the 4 of us together.
Right. So how many of you 4 brothers are still alive and kicking?
All 4.
All 4.
Originally 5. We lost a brother when I was, who was 21 and I was 19, my freshman year at Chico State. The middle number, he was the middle son, 2 years older than me. He was number 3 in the family. He got killed in a light plane crash between Chico and Red Rock, somewhere down in that area. He was an accomplished pilot. He was taking multi-engine instruction. There was a guy sitting in the back seat just along for the ride. He was up with an instructor, and they put a...
Your cousin?
Yeah, it was a cousin of mine, distant cousin of mine. Larry Giesner was his name, but they put a hood over you, so all you see is your they don't want you to look at the ground to judge. Yeah, you're looking at your instrument panel, period. That's all you can see. And the instructor will have you look down. Now you can't see nothing. Bam, he shuts off the fuel to one motor. You don't know which one. But it's going to be the one out, if you're going that way, is it going to be this one or this one? You don't know. But if it's, say, this one, all right, the plane wants to do this, and it's powered, it's going to turn that way, because the other one is, if it stops, the propeller stops, it's like putting on the brakes on one side, and the other one's swinging you around, and you're going to go kabam.
Right.
So what you have to do, if it's this one, the right one, you hit a hard left rudder to keep the plane from going that way, to keep it straight, and turn your stick this way to lift that side up, because it wants to drop down. Got no power, and it's got the brakes on it, while there's a thing in your plane to feather the prop. Instead of having an angle, so when it turns, it's pulling you, you feather it. So it's not catching any wind at all. And then with a hard left rudder, you can keep the thing level and fly along on one motor.
Right.
See, that kind of, it's an instruction that I know about. But anyway, for some reason, the reason that once they crashed, killed all three on board, it was a brand new plane. It was a Piper Twin Comanche, I think. Anyway, FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, they come in, they send a crew out there. They go through the wreckage with a fine-tooth comb. To control that rudder, it's nothing but a cable that runs from your stick up there, and it goes into that rudder area, and it's a piece of cable like that, and it's got a pin that drops down through it with a washer and a cotter key to keep it in place. The cotter key was left off at the factory.
Oh, wow.
That was their ruling.
And that's how your brother died?
Yeah, they didn't know that, but the rudder's doing this, so down they come. They had no chance. My mother and father got a call from a lawyer who was representing the a young woman whose husband was the in-flight instructor. I mean, here's a woman, 32 years old, 3 kids at home, and she just lost her husband.
Right.
Did they want in on this? My parents and the Giesner parents. No, we don't want that. We don't want any blood money. We'll take the insurance money off the airplane crash, and that's because it was our plane. They just bought it. And but they didn't want any blood money,
Yeah. Well, it's a sad story.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where he got killed.
And you had four brothers left.
So now there's 4 of us. Yeah. The 2 oldest and the 2. My baby brother lives in McKinleyville, right there by Arcata, Eureka area. There's a town there called McKinley, named after a shot-dead brother.
And you sold your share.
I sold out. We've all sold out to Bud, Brother Bud. He's number 2. Yeah, he's the second born.
And which were you?
I was number 4.
You're number 4. Okay.
And number 5 lives on the coast.
Okay.
Number 1, Vernon, the oldest brother, lives in Alturas.
Okay. And number 2 has
the ranch on free and clear, but had to sell a lot of property to buy us out. When it was a cattle ranch, we had a huge winter range west of Cottonwood and west of Red Bluff. That's, my younger brother might own some of his, but it was a big thing that my dad and my granddad bought when the Great Depression hit. Advantage to us was my granddad, he didn't owe anybody a dime. People owed him money. So the Depression didn't hurt those who were in debt deeply. Now all of a sudden a dollar's worth a dime, if you got any dollars,
Right.
Yeah, but if you're in debt to the bank can't collect. They're going broke. They're slamming their doors. They can't keep their. I mean, you know about the Great Depression. Well, my granddad didn't owe anybody. So he come out smelling like a rose. He bought that ranch down there. It's about the same at about that time, trucks were coming along, truck and trailers. I mean, they're getting away from the Model A Fords, and somewhere in the Depression, my God, lasted till World War II. World War II got us out of the Great Depression. Now all of a sudden we need guns and tanks and battleships and airplanes and bombs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of truth. And we need soldiers.
Right.
All these unemployed guys are off to war, you know, and the ones that stayed home are Rosie the Riveter. There's a shortage of labor, for God's sake, instead of lines of unemployed looking for a job, you know. I don't know. Yeah, funny things that happen that way.
Well, I think, you know, I'm going to conclude this. We're going to do more interviews. But this is Steve Knoch of the Knoch family, and this is a part of our Pit River history series. And we'll do some more interviews.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, now see that red light go off on that camera.